Hey, what's going on, everybody? Commander Crane here, and we are back with another Pioneer deck tech. And today, we're going to be talking about Budget Elf Aggro. I am very excited to share this very spicy list with you. As always, at the end of the video, let me know in the comment section below, what do you think about this deck? Is there a specific elf or a different card I should have included in this list? Or do you have suggestions for upcoming videos? Just let me know in the comment section. So, alright, Elves. Elves has been a very discussed deck recently because there has been a lot of new elves printed in the new set foundations coming out. And one of the cards, or at least I would say the card, that made me want to actually talk about this deck is this card right here, Elvish Archdruid. I used to play Elvish Archdruid a lot back in the day, in Modern and like a little bit like Kitchen Table. I used to use this for its ability because tap to add 1 green for each elf you control. So what I used to do is I played like Llanowar Elves and Elvish Mystic and cards like Elvish Archdruid to help make a whole bunch of mana and play some really big creatures. But we're not going to be playing big creatures in this deck, although our creatures, they can get very big because there's also another lord that was spoiled in Foundations that we will get to in just a bit here. But I think Elves is fantastic. We have so many lords in this deck. There's even a bunch of lords that we didn't even put in this deck. That's how many elf lords are now in the format. And I'd been talking about for a while how Elvish Archdruid would be huge for elves. If you didn't actually watch the video, a couple months ago, I made a video predicting cards I'd like to see in Foundations, and this was one of the cards I highlighted in that, and I'm really happy that it is coming back. But let's go and hop into it. So obviously we're playing the 4 Elvish Archdruid. I would say it's arguably the best card in the entire deck. So let's take a look at the 1-drops. Llanowar Elves and Elvish Mystic. Ooh, how surprising. We're playing Llanowar Elves and Elvish Mystic in our elf deck. We're also playing 4 copies of Jasperus Sentinel. Very good in this deck for a number of different reasons, which we'll kind of get to in just a moment here. But definitely a big fan of the Jasperus Sentinel. And then let's go and take a look at our 2-drops here. So 4 Dwynen's Elite, 4 Elvish Warmaster. The idea with this deck is we want to go really wide with a whole bunch of different elves, so that way our elf lords can just help take over the game, because even our 1/1 elf tokens will turn into like 3/3s and 4/4s and such, and Dwynen's Elite and Elvish Warmaster are fantastic at that. And then I want to start talking about our lords, but actually before I talk about that, actually real quick, Elvish Warmaster is huge in this deck just because if we get Elvish Archdruid in play, we tap it for the number of elves we control, then we can activate Elvish Warmaster to help give our elves +2/+2 and Death Touch. I forgot to mention that, but definitely huge fan of Elvish Warmaster. So okay, let's go and talk about our lords. So obviously we're playing the Elvish Archdruid. We're also playing Leaf Crowned Visionary. This card is absolutely fantastic. I'd say it's arguably the best card in the deck. It's definitely first or second best, but huge fan of the Leaf Crowned Visionary because it helps us draw a ton of cards. Then we're also playing 4 copies of Imperious Perfect, the other brand new elf lord in this deck. We have 12 lords in this deck, which is just absolutely just crazy. I can't believe that we got 2 elf lords in this same set, which is crazy. And we're also playing 4 copies of Shaman of the Pact. It's the only black card in the entire main deck, but it's absolutely insane. When it enters, target opponent loses life equal to the number of elves you control. Half the time, we don't have to win through combat damage. We can just put a whole bunch of elves into play, and then we can just like collect a company. Spoiler alert, we're playing 4 copies of that. Hit double Shaman, and the game could just potentially be over. So definitely a huge fan of Shaman of the Pact in this deck. And then Collected Company. Enough said, there's really nothing I can say about Collected Company that hasn't already been said. The card is absolutely insane, and part of the reason why Elves is so good is because we got 2 lords that we can put into play with Collected Company. Sure, we did have some other lords before, but these ones are really good for this deck just because Imperious Perfect, obviously being a lord that helps make more elves itself, is extremely strong, and then Archdruid helps us make a ton of mana to be able to just play a whole bunch of different spells and activate our really good elf abilities. So overall, really fan of this list. This is the main board, except for the lands, which our land base is going to be really simple, but we are a budget deck after all. So we're playing 4 copies of Blooming Marsh, 4 copies of Llanowar Waste, and 4 copies of Woodland Cemetery as our main dual lands, just because they come in untapped most of the time, and they're budget friendly, so that's why we're playing them. And then rounding out our lands, we're playing 2 copies of Lair of the Hydra and 6 forests. I was originally playing 4 Lair of the Hydra just because I wanted things to do with our mana from Elvish Archdruid, but I ended up going down to 2 copies just because I wanted a little bit more consistency with the Woodland Cemetery, so that's why I'm playing the 6 copies of the forest there specifically. But if you want to play, just cut the Shamans and play mono green, just go ahead and put in 4 Lair of the Hydras. But With the forest as our spicy basic land of the day, every time I play an elf deck, I always have to use this land. It's the Jumpstart Forest, because it's like, for those who don't know, there's a whole bunch of like Kindred themed Jumpstart packs, and one of them was elves, and this was the special basic that came in that because, you know, it's got like the Land of Elves theme to it there. Overall, I really, really love the Jumpstart Forest, and this one is definitely one of my favorites, so that's why I chose this one. So, don't go anywhere yet, though. We still have to talk about our sideboard as well as some upgrade options for the deck. So, sideboarding is going to be pretty simple. Leyline of the Void, I can't believe I'm saying this, is a really great budget option in our deck, playing a couple copies in the sideboard. It was just reprinted in Duskmourn, and you can pick them up for super cheap. So that's why we're playing Leyline of the Void. I also have a few copies of Duress. Duress is just a really, really good sideboard card. It has been ever since it's been printed. We're playing a few copies of those. I'm also playing a few copies of Assassin's Trophy and Pick Your Poison in the sideboard. Pick Your Poison is our really good, like, Naturalize-esque effect, but it's also really good against all the transmog decks that are floating around because people love playing those transmog decks, and we need to take out those big giant flyers, so that's why we're playing that. We're also playing Assassin's Trophy just because it's a clean answer for everything. I mean, 2 mana instant destroys anything. Why wouldn't we play it? And then I've also played a few copies of Golgari Charm. The main reason being, well, there's actually 2 reasons. One, there's a lot of enchantments going around in the format, and Golgari Charm can destroy an enchantment. But the main reason is to regenerate each creature we control. So recently, with all the new, like, 3 mana, or the red sweepers that are getting printed, like, there's a Slag Storm that was just printed, and then we also have Pyroclasm, a lot of people are starting to play those in their sideboard. And Golgari Charm is great, because one of the modes on it is regenerate each creature you control, so it's a really nice, flexible, it's like a board sweeper protection, but it's also really good at just, like, doing other things in the metagame overall. So, definitely a huge fan of the Golgari Charm in the sideboard. And then the last thing we have to talk about is the upgrade options for the deck, which is really, really simple. Upgrade the dual lands in the utility lands. Go ahead and get yourself, you know, like a Takenuma, a Boseiju, what else we got? Overgrown Tomb, Darkboard Pathway, that kind of thing. Just upgrading your lands in general. Court of Calling is also interesting. I think it's a worthwhile upgrade for this deck just because we make so much mana. You can just go ahead and grab any elf from your deck as well as some sideboard cards if you have them in the sideboard, which we'll kind of talk about that in a second. The current list as of right now is only $75 US, which is incredibly cheap for a fun Pioneer deck, especially like this. The only card that's really pricey is the Leaf Crown Visionary, so if you just swap those out for like Elvish Clankcallers or something, that cuts like a whole bunch of the cost down in the deck. So definitely very, very cheap. The last thing I want to mention is Toolbox Elves. Most of the elf decks you'll see in Pioneer, they're not like elf stompy, they're like Toolbox, Collected Company, and Court of Calling with a bunch of like one-ofs. Like, for instance, like Werefox Bodyguard is actually an elf, so they play that, and then they play a whole bunch of cards in their sideboard. I do have a list in the description below if you'd like to check out one of those Toolbox elf decks. It's very, very interesting, and it's definitely worth checking out. It's kind of, you know, elves, but on a different axis. But overall, this deck, the main important thing is Elf Stompy. We're playing 12 Lords, Collected Company, a bunch of token producers, and we're turning our elves sideways. That's what we're trying to do. And Elvish Archdruid and Imperious Perfect are fantastic new additions to this deck. So overall, I love Foundations, and I'm very, very excited that I got to feature elves making a resurgence in the format. So that takes us to the end of the video here. Thanks so much for watching. The deck lists are in the description below if you'd like to check them out for yourself. Huge shout out to our channel members, Ralph, Matt, Arcadius, Ray, Gary, Serwanoki, and Night Red 3. If you're interested in being a channel member, it's only $1 US a month. You get access to the exclusive Commander Crane Discord, as well as other features here on the channel. So, I'm Commander Crane. Thanks for watching this video, and I hope to catch you in the next one.